Okay, so the south stand is going to be the focus for the home fans in the new stadium. That's where the 17,000 seater cop end, as it's called, so the single tiered stand, it will be located. Below that will be a 5-story atrium. Which will have, a myriad of catering outlets and kind of entertainment venues, basically. The plan, the last time we spoke with Populous, who are the stadium architects designers, back in July, was that section would be open to any Spurs fan. So even if you're sitting in the north stand, you could go in there before the match, soak up the atmosphere in there, whatever entertainment's going on around the food courts, etc., etc. And then there'd be a certain time when you need to leave and move around to your stand. But obviously you can't do that at the moment. You can only go into the stand that you're sitting in. So they're trying to make that into like a massive home focus, and not just within the actual stadium itself, but the whole of that south end of the complex will be a massive fan zone.
Sort of like a concourse.
Yeah, but it's like an atrium. It's going to be massive. So if you imagine how tall it will be, it's 5 stories tall, and that will all be open.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hey, you know what you might want to check out, Kat? Check out we call it Jerry World.
It's
the Cowboys Stadium. Yeah, it's unbelievable. But they have that on both sides of the end zone, kind of this communal area, irrespective of where. It's. I'm not a Cowboy fan.
Neither am
I. That place is architecturally. Yeah, well, we know where your allegiance is. But it's a really cool experience. So you can go. It's like general admission kind of vibe, and it's very open air, very tall elevation.
And I like the way that is kind of explained, Kat, because that is very similar to the modern stadia in this country. Is that you can wander all around and soak up everything and every aspect before you go to your seats, and you certainly can't do that at White Hart Lane.
No.
And I think atmosphere is quite a central part of the stadium. Just jumping in there as well, because what might be quite interesting to a lot of your listeners is that Populous, who are the stadium architects, they're the kind of leading stadium architects in the world, and they do a lot of work with the NFL. And through some of the work that I do as a journalist, I've sort of been doing some research, and we had some dealings with a magazine that did a big interview with Populous a while ago, and they say that they're approached quite a lot by NFL teams who want them to recreate the atmosphere of English football stadiums at the new NFL stadiums as well. So they've got this thing which they call designing the experience now, which a lot of people will be slapping their foreheads when they hear those words as well. But they're very keen on this atmosphere side of things. So one of the reasons for this single tier south stand is because of the way the noise works on there. Traditionally, if you have those kind of stadiums with a row of executive boxes around a middle ring, the noise from the lower stands kind of bounces off and it gets broken up as it goes out. If you've got this single tier stand under a roof, the idea is that the noise is going to be so loud coming back onto the pitch that it tries to recreate that atmosphere. And I think what the club's always been very conscious of is that White Hart Lane does have a great reputation for atmosphere. It's got stands that are in close to the pitch, and on its day it can still be a fantastic stadium, and they want to try and make sure that this isn't just another one of these kind of big glass and steel bowls, which we're seeing growing up all over the place. So I think, we've been quite encouraged by what we've seen, both from what Populous have said and what the club has said, and I think that fan atmosphere is going to be central to that. That south stand, the cop stand, if the legislation changes in this country and safe standing is allowed again, then there is a chance that we can get a safe standing end in that cop end as well. But at the moment, it's
not. To clarify, it won't be 17,000 seats though. It will be a section of it.
Yeah, it would be a section of it, as well. And at the moment, the legislation is that top class football grounds cannot have standing facilities in there, and so until that legislation changes, we can't really move any further on that. But we believe the provision is there if the legislation changes for Spurs to adopt that. So that's another positive thing.
Well, that's great. And this is a good segue, because you talk about NFL consulting with English stadiums. Well, here it's no secret of the deal that ENIC has done with the NFL. So with that in mind, the 10-year, 20-game deal, what are your thoughts on the long-term plans with the NFL? And do you think you'll ever see a team permanently at White Hart Lane representing the NFL?
Personally, I think it's too soon to start talking about that, to be utterly honest with you. I think the deal that we signed is pretty much a landmark deal. the recent meeting that we had with the club, Daniel Levy did a presentation for us, and they had the graphics on there of the sliding pitch, and it looks awesome. So I'm, completely impressed by that, and I think it's fantastic for Tottenham as a club. I don't think the club had appreciated quite how big news it would be stateside, the NFL tie-up. So that's a pleasant surprise. I know they want to work to engender more ties with the NFL in the run-up to the new stadium being built. But in terms of moving a franchise over here, that's serious. I think that's a fair whack of a way off, to be honest. It's certainly nothing that we've discussed at this moment in time.
Yeah, I would say that is definitely something for the future. I think that obviously the great short-term news is the fact that fans in London and in the UK will have an opportunity to get into London on a regular basis and see a couple of games in the same place. And for fans of the national team, you won't have to be concerned about a bunch of 300-pound athletes chewing up Wembley's surface for the England team to play there a few days later, as was recently the case.
Right.
And they are still playing at Wembley, though, aren't they? It's not an exclusive deal, so they would still be using Wembley. And potentially looking at using maybe Twickenham as well. I think the idea was they wanted to move it around more than just relying on Wembley. So that would still be used.
So potentially several games a season versus the standard, what was it, 2 right now?
Potentially.
Yeah, I think it's 2 right now, right?
Yeah, Goodell's made it very, very clear that he wants to move it. In fact, they just, I think they signed a game or 2 in Mexico City. I mean, so they're really trying to make the game more global.
Yes.
And Simon, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm hearing an underlying tone. What Martin was saying about the stadium is that to create that kind of atmosphere, you want the average tourist that maybe is not yet a football fan, as they go to try to decide where they want to go watch a match, per se. This is something that's over here. I want to go experience it. I don't know nothing about it, but I want to go. Katrina and I had a conversation at one point talking about the Emirates and why the atmosphere is so dim at times and very mundane, is that you get a lot of tourists that can just walk up, buy tickets, go in there and sit and have no affinity toward either team and thus make no noise. It was a worry, and it probably still is a worry for the trust, for fans, for the atmosphere of the ground. But I think if the ground is built in such a way, and now that we have that partnership with the National Football League, that it will lend that tourist to say, I want to go here, rather than going to Stamford Bridge or the Emirates or, well, no one wants to go to Selhurst, but whatever. And then B, that once they get in there, they want to experience the noise and the reverberation. It's very important for the solid, 35, 40, 45,000 people that are die-hard Tottenham Hotspur, supporters that get in that ground to make as much noise as possible so that those other people will get into it. Go ahead.
Can we rewind slightly on that?
Sure.
I think what you touched on at the end of that is the most important thing. And something that Martin and I are working on tirelessly at the moment is ensuring that those 30 to 40,000 core Tottenham fans can actually get into that stadium, that tickets are priced accessibly, and that they are not frozen out. Yes, obviously, the Olympic Stadium will also be playing football, and that will also be a tourist destination in an iconic stadium in Stratford. So we're still going to have to compete for that. But if you don't have the retained fan base of traditional Tottenham people, the rest of it is fluff, basically. Martin, do you want to expand?
Yeah, is the club trying to argue? Is the club, or do you feel that the club is trying to argue otherwise with potentially inflated figures of season ticket holder waiting?
I'm going to let Martin jump in on the whole ticket pricing thing if you want us to do that now.
Well, we're gonna talk about that. We have that as a hearty topic to discuss a little bit later on. So hold
I don't
those
think they're
thoughts.
inflating the season ticket waiting list. I don't think they've ever asked bronze members whether they are on that list to be on the season ticket waiting list or to get priority booking for home games, because the first 1,000 get priority booking. That's never been clarified.
I'm glad that you clarified that, because it may be that people, they want to be on the list, but will they really act if given the opportunity? Right?
It's a 1 in 5 take-up at the moment on season tickets that are offered.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an example of that. I'm a bronze member, and I'm not in a position to go to the lane or the new stadium every other week. So.
No, but we're buying tickets if you get.
Okay.
But I think it's also
but I don't know whether that's good or bad.
We were at the Norwegian Birds a couple of weeks ago, and you may be visited to more people, but so many of those supporters from away to every home game and quite a lot of away games as well. So I think often, fans, we can be our own worst enemies sometimes, talking about who's a real fan, tourist or whatever. That we're talking about a much wider range of people, if you like, than people quite a lot of times. So I think we kind of have to be mindful of that as well when we're talking about the tickets and things going forward.
Right.
But ticket pricing is an important issue with the stadium, and I think we'll come into that. Did you get any of that at all?
Yeah,
most of it.
We
got it.
I think we're good there.
And it's interesting because when we were over in May, we met some of the people who are our followers on Twitter, and it was such a wonderful experience to meet some of those people. But in talking to a number of them, it was like, hey, you going to go to the match tomorrow? I haven't been to the match in 20 years. I can't afford to go. Mm-hmm. So we hear that a lot. And it's extremely unfortunate. And not everybody's in a position to go. And some people are more than content to live, watching it on the telly or even on the radio if that's the avenue that they choose. But we would love for an opportunity for people to be able to go. Maybe Europa League or Champions League. Well, I don't know about Champions League if we get there, but Europa League events that would happen in that stadium. Is the club in a position to where one day you say, all right, 2 for 1. You buy 1 ticket, you get 2. Something like that allows maybe, hey, why don't you come? You haven't been in 20 years. Let's go watch.
Yeah.
Let's go watch us take on Karabakh or whoever.
I have to say, I think the club have got it right in terms of Europa League pricing and in terms of early round FA Cup games and League Cup games. Since we started pushing them for that, it's normally been between £20 and £25 for an adult ticket, £10 for an OAP and a fiver if you're under 18. And they do family packs, so like 2 adults, 2 children for 50 quid or 40 quid, depending on the adult price bracket. So I think that's actually probably right. You are, after all, playing for European football, so I think the 20 quid mark is more or less fair, to be honest. And they don't sell out all those games, but they get bigger gates than they would do if they were charging £40, £50. So
absolutely.
just to doff my cap to them, I think they are more or less getting that right on the cup pricing.
Good.
Okay, well, let's expand a bit on that when we get to the ticket piece, because I think that's very important, and I think the listeners definitely want to know a bit more about it. So going back to the stadium and the NDP, in the minutes there was a claim that there were going to be 10,000 new homes as part of the development of the 130-acre site. Does that seem plausible? Is it correct? I think the residential development calls for 529 new apartments, which doesn't quite gel with 10,000 homes. So can you expand on that?
I'll let Martin expand properly on this. Just to kind of caveat, as a supporters trust, we've had to make some tough decisions about how involved we can get in the whole of this Haringey regeneration. It's enormous. So alongside the club's plans on that 130-acre site, there's also what is called High Road West, which is Haringey Council's own regeneration project. And that includes the new train station at White Hart Lane, etc., etc. So in terms of housing, be that social housing or private housing, it's a tricky one for us. There's just not enough hours in the day to cover everything off. So we've kind of had to limit ourselves to stuff that impacts on our match-going fans, the stadium and transport. Martin, do you want to pick up?
Yeah, I think that's right, and there's a massive debate that's been going on for about 40 years in the sports business about how much stadium contributes to a local or a national economy as out, and how much it does. And yet the view that we've taken is that without any stadium redevelopment at Spurs, the local area will have no at all. So, one of the reasons we back it, and one of the wider reasons that we back it, is because it will regenerate an area in need of regeneration. Part of the problem is then when you get into the detail of that. So there is an argument, for example, and it's wider than just a football argument, about what the definition of an affordable home is. There's a whole issue with the London property market and the amount of money that's going into that as well. And they are arguments that are being had out there. As a supporters trust, that kind of goes beyond our remit. So in a way, it might sound a bit woolly, but we have to say, we back the stadium because it will regenerate the area. We back the stadium because it will mean more fans can get in to see the team. And we would hope that as much as possible, the club and the community's interests will be able to coincide, and the whole area will be improved. I don't think any of us wants to see a club which is in the middle of a community but not a part of it as well. So, but there's a huge range of issues that are being discussed, and a lot of as a supporters organisation.
So along those lines, with obviously new